The year is 399 BC. The sun is setting over the city of Athens, the cradle of democracy, the beacon of Western civilization. But inside a dark stone prison cell, a tragedy is about to unfold that will stain the reputation of this great city forever. An old man sits on a simple bed. He is 70 years old, robust and calm. Around him, his friends and students are weeping, tearing their clothes in grief. But the man himself is not crying. He is defiant. He reaches out a steady hand and takes a cup. Inside the cup is a dark, murky liquid, an extract of the hemlock plant, a deadly neurotoxin. This man is Socrates. He is arguably the wisest man in Greece, the father of Western philosophy, and he is not dying by the hand of an enemy soldier or a common criminal. He is being executed by the very democracy he loved. He is about to drink the poison mandated by the people of Athens. How did it come to this? How did the most open-minded city in the ancient world convince itself to kill its most famous thinker? Was he a dangerous criminal who corrupted the youth, or was he a martyr for the truth? To understand this moment, the moment the cup touches his lips, we must peel back the layers of history, politics, and fear that gripped ancient Athens. This is the true story of the trial and death of Socrates. To understand why Socrates had to die, we must first look at the world he lived in. We often picture Athens as a golden paradise of marble statues and free speech, but by 399 BC, the golden age was over. Athens was a city on the edge of a nervous breakdown. For nearly 30 years, Athens had been locked in a brutal conflict with its rival, Sparta, known as the Peloponnesian War. It was a war that Athens lost. The defeat was humiliating. The Spartan army had torn down the defensive walls of Athens. The glorious Athenian navy was destroyed. The empire was gone. But the defeat brought something worse than poverty. It brought political chaos. Following the loss, democracy was overthrown. A group of 30 ruthless oligarchs known as the 30 Tyrants seized power. For 8 bloody months, they terrorized the city, executing political opponents and stealing property. Although democracy was eventually restored, the people of Athens were traumatized. They were paranoid. They were looking for someone to blame for their fall from grace. They looked for scapegoats. They needed to believe that they lost the war because they had angered the gods. They needed to purify the city. And there, walking the streets barefoot, asking annoying questions, was Socrates. Socrates was a strange figure. He wasn't a politician, he wasn't a general, he didn't even write books. In fact, everything we know about him comes from his students, primarily Plato and Xenophon. Socrates spent his days in the marketplace, the agora, stopping wealthy and powerful men and asking them simple questions. What is justice? What is piety? What is virtue? When these powerful men tried to answer, Socrates would use logic to tear their answers apart, exposing their ignorance. He called himself a gadfly, a horsefly that stings a lazy horse to keep it awake. Athens was the lazy horse, and Socrates was the stinging fly. While this was intellectually brilliant, it was socially dangerous. He embarrassed the most powerful people in the city in front of the youth. Young men loved to watch Socrates dismantle the egos of the arrogant elite, but the elite did not forget. Furthermore, Socrates had some problematic connections. Some of the men who had betrayed Athens, including the traitorous general Alcibiades and the leader of the 30 Tyrants, Critias, had been students of Socrates. To the fearful public, it looked like Socrates' teaching produced traitors and dictators. The tension finally snapped in 399 BC. 3 men, Meletus, a poet, Einatus, a powerful politician, and Lycon, an orator, brought formal charges against the philosopher. The indictment read, Socrates is guilty of 2 crimes. First, of not believing in the gods whom the state believes in, and of introducing new divinities.
Second, he is guilty of corrupting the youth. The punishment sought was death. In ancient Athens, there were no lawyers and no judges. The trial took place before a jury of 500 or 501 male citizens chosen by lottery. It was a direct democracy in its rawest form. The accusers spoke first, painting Socrates as a dangerous atheist and a manipulator who taught children to disrespect their parents and the state. Then it was Socrates' turn to speak. This speech, immortalized in Plato's work, The Apology, is one of the most famous speeches in history. Apology here doesn't mean saying sorry. It comes from the Greek word apologia, meaning a defense. If the jurors expected Socrates to beg for his life, they were wrong. Standard procedure in an Athenian trial was to weep, to bring your wife and children into the court to cry and beg for mercy. Socrates refused. He stood tall. He spoke with logic and irony. He told the jury a story about the Oracle of Delphi. His friend had asked the oracle if there was anyone wiser than Socrates. The oracle replied, "No one is wiser." Socrates claimed he was confused by this because he knew he wasn't smart. So he interviewed the politicians and poets of Athens. He realized that while they thought they knew everything, they actually knew nothing. Socrates concluded that he was the wisest man only because he admitted his own ignorance. As he famously stated, "I know that I know nothing." He told the jury that he was a gift from God to the city. He argued that killing him would harm Athens more than it would harm him. He said, "If you kill me, you will not easily find another like me." He positioned himself not as a criminal, but as a moral doctor trying to cure the city of its arrogance. To the angry, paranoid jurors, this sounded like incredible arrogance. He wasn't apologizing, he was lecturing them. The vote was cast. It was close, but the result was clear. 280 jurors voted guilty, 220 voted not guilty. A difference of only 30 votes would have saved his life. But the drama was not over. Under Athenian law, once a defendant was found guilty, the prosecution proposed a penalty, death, and the defendant could propose an alternative penalty. Usually, the defendant would suggest a heavy fine or exile, and the jury would accept it to avoid killing a citizen. But Socrates refused to play the game. He argued that since he had spent his life helping the city by teaching virtue, he shouldn't be punished at all. Instead, he proposed that he be given free meals for life at the Prytaneum, the dining hall reserved for Olympic champions and heroes of the state. It was a slap in the face to the jury. It was a final act of defiance. He eventually offered a small fine paid for by his friends like Plato, but the damage was done. The jury was furious. In the second vote to decide the punishment, even more people voted for death than had voted for his guilt. The final sentence was passed, death by drinking hemlock. Socrates was taken to prison. Because of a religious festival, his execution was delayed for a month. During this time, his wealthy friend Crito bribed the guards and arranged an escape. It would have been easy. The citizens of Athens probably hoped he would escape so they wouldn't have his blood on their hands. But Socrates refused to go. In the dialogue known as Crito, he explains why. He argued that he had lived in Athens his whole life, accepted its benefits, and implicitly agreed to its laws. To break the law now just because it was inconvenient would be to destroy the social contract. He would rather die as a loyal citizen than live as an outlaw. He chose principle over survival. And so we return to the final scene. The sun is setting. The jailer, weeping, brings in the cup of poison. Hemlock is a cruel way to die. It causes a gradual paralysis that starts in the feet and moves upward to the heart. Socrates takes the cup without a trembling hand. He prays to the gods for a safe journey to the afterlife. He drinks it in one draught. His friends break down in uncontrollable tears. Socrates rebukes them, saying, "What is this strange outcry? I sent the women away mainly to avoid such a scene, for I have heard that a man should die in peace. Be quiet and be brave." He walks around the cell until his legs feel heavy. Then he lies down. The numbness creeps up his body. He covers his face. Then, in his final moment, he uncovers his face one last time to speak his final words to his friend Crito. He says, "Crito, we owe a rooster to Asclepius. Please don't forget to pay the debt."
Greeks would offer a rooster to him when they recovered from an illness. With these final, enigmatic words, Socrates suggests that death is not a tragedy, but a cure for the sickness of life, a release of the soul from the prison of the body. The paralysis reaches his heart. The greatest mind of the ancient world is gone. The death of Socrates was the beginning, not the end. His student, Plato, was so profoundly affected by this injustice that he dedicated his life to documenting Socrates' philosophy. Through Plato and later Aristotle, the ideas of Socrates became the foundation of Western thought. Socrates taught us that the unexamined life is not worth living. He taught us that integrity is worth more than life itself. He showed us that a majority vote does not determine the truth. Athens killed the man, but they could not kill the questions. Thousands of years later, the image of that old man holding the cup of poison remains the ultimate symbol of the courage of conscience. He forced the world to look in the mirror, and for that, he paid the ultimate price. If you enjoyed this deep dive into historical story, please support the channel. Click the subscribe button and hit the like button to see more historical story like this. Asclepius was the god of medicine and healing. Greeks would offer a rooster to him when they recovered from an illness. With these final enigmatic words, Socrates suggests that death is not a tragedy, but a cure for the sickness of life, a release of the soul from the prison of the body. The paralysis reaches his heart. The greatest mind of the ancient world is gone. The death of Socrates was the beginning, not the end. His student, Plato, was so profoundly affected by this injustice that he dedicated his life to documenting Socrates' philosophy. Through Plato and later Aristotle, the ideas of Socrates became the foundation of Western thought. Socrates taught us that the unexamined life is not worth living. He taught us that integrity is worth more than life itself. He showed us that a majority vote does not determine the truth. Athens killed the man, but they could not kill the questions. Thousands of years later, the image of that old man holding the cup of poison remains the ultimate symbol of the courage of conscience. He forced the world to look in the mirror, and for that, he paid the ultimate price. If you enjoyed this deep dive into historical story, please support the channel. Click the subscribe button and hit the like button to see more historical story like this.